Welcome to the Gaming Discourse. I'm Tyler Frater alongside Richard De La Cruz.
Hello.
And Chief Engineer, Lieutenant Commander Connor Frater.
Yes.
It is July 8th, 2021. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook at The Gaming Discourse. Go to our YouTube channel, YouTube/Gaming Discourse, where we post videos. Just less than a week ago, I posted Medal of Honor, Allied Assault, an essay/review covering Allied Assault and its two expansions, Breakthrough and Spearhead. So I may talk a little bit about that in a second, but go check it out. It's one of those videos that I think turned out pretty good. I sort of liked the end product.
You're pretty hard on yourself sometimes.
So I think people will enjoy it. And
They better.
It's funny. I get lots of comments that range from
Typical internet comments.
like really nice to the point where it's like, okay, there's no way my video, like some people are like, you renewed my belief in video. It's like, okay, it's like my video's not that good. And then there's other comments that are like, why don't you go straight to hell? It's like, okay, yeah.
So the full gambit of internet comments then actual comments.
But I got probably one of the funniest comments, funniest mean comments that I've ever gotten this week. The person wasn't trying to be funny. They were just, who knows why people post mean comments, but it was on my Fuel Rat video.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And when you state something, here's the thing: you could say in a video, you could make all kinds of horrible statements. You can make racist statements. You could make sexist statements.
You can
that
make
doesn't
racist,
bother
sexist
YouTube
statements.
commenters. What bothers YouTube commenters is any discussion about a game's difficulty, because by God, if it is not as difficult as people think it is, you will feel their wrath. So I talked about Elite Dangerous, and I talked about how Elite Dangerous has in my Fuel Rat video, the beginning of it, is that Elite Dangerous has sort of a difficulty curve. Yeah. And the Fuel Rats are there, and they help out a lot of new players because there's a lot of things that new players don't realize. And somebody was just incensed that I would even consider the possibility that Elite Dangerous was difficult, and it was just kind of funny. But anyway, I'm only speaking that because I got into
literally have to learn how to fly a spacecraft, don't you? In that game, okay.
And you have to learn how to do
fuel scooping.
I remember when I started Elite Dangerous, I was playing with a friend, and we were under the impression that you had to, when you scooped fuel from stars, you had to go really fast around the edge of the star, right? Which is difficult because if you get too close, you get dropped out of slip space or whatever it's called. And so, as a new player, and as a new player who thought that you needed to go really fast, it was like the hardest thing in the world to fuel scoop. And then eventually we learned you don't have to go fast. You can literally run up to a star, park, and scoop all your and you're fine. You don't have to go speed of light.
Drive-by scooping.
Pulling the throttle up, and pulling the stick back, and having a giant gas ball above you, and you're trying to judge it correctly.
Do you think that's just a consequence of how realistic everything else is? You kind of just assume that you have to do it.
It does intuitively make
almost
sense
like
because you're
there's a learning
things.
curve,
right? Yes, exactly. Anyway, so it was just kind of funny. Anyway.
Interesting story about your Fuel Rat video.
Go ahead. Sure.
I found out a couple days ago from our nephew that he made a friend that he plays Elite Dangerous with, who found out about the Fuel Rats from your video.
Oh, well, really?
Yeah.
There's a lot of people watch that video.
Yeah.
I've gone national.
My apartment.
Gone national.
Kind of a big deal.
Richard.
Yes.
You've been playing games?
Yeah.
So why don't you?
It's not the same.
Not as good as.
Yeah. Sorry. Hold on. Quick. I'm gonna tell this.
Shit out.
We're the only people that can do tangents, Richard.
Yeah.
Oh, all right.
I'm kidding.
I'm gonna tell the story. So, my coworker from another store, whenever we send people back and forth to deliver defective systems or any other things that one of the other stores might need, he always sends me coffees, and he always sends me the Monster coffees I have here.
Oh, yeah.
And one day,
Nice guy.
yeah, no, very nice. I tell him to stop sometimes, and he still does it. But he sent me some different ones, not the Monster ones. He sent me some different ones, just because I've been kind of like, you know what, I want to slow down on those, just do something else. And so he sent me the Starbucks double shot energy cans that are the same size. And my coworker hands them to me when he comes in to drop off everything, and he's like, hey, oh yeah, Ryan gave you these coffees, and he said you don't want the monster ones anymore. And I was like, yeah, I don't want the monster ones anymore. And I pick up the Starbucks. I'm like, God, but these are so like much worse. I meant in like taste and just like content wise. And then I looked at both of the cans and I was like, oh no, the monster's way worse. The monster is way worse than the Starbucks one. And I was like, all right, well, I'm gonna stop drinking these. So I kind of stopped drinking the monster ones, and I get these now, which are good. They're fine.
Starbucks ones.
Yeah, they're more
bad.
Yeah, they're not half bad. I don't think I'd consider them like just sugar milk.
Yeah,
essentially. I mean, there's a tiny bit of coffee.
It's bottom shelf.
Yeah.
Starbucks.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, all right, games. I've been playing. I've gone back to Returnal.
Okay.
And something clicked in my head that I don't like. But I'm going to try to ignore it. I am now relating Returnal to FTL in the worst ways.
Oh.
And that is the fact that Returnal does not care how good you're doing. Mm-hmm. It will make you crash into a brick wall. And like FTL, like just like your first run on an FTL, like the first, like I guess I'll call them level because you go through like strings of planets.
Yeah,
like your first jump,
first system.
Your first jump, it'll just be like, no, fuck you. Start over.
Yeah.
And I mean any roguelike, any roguelike, but it's just I feel like Returnal has that so much more. Like as often as FTL. I felt like I got that a lot in FTL. Maybe I just RNGesus hates me, but
it's possible.
It is possible, but Returnal, I am very frequently just getting hard stops like in my gameplay and what they throw at me and how long I can stand against the forces that they conjure up, and it's discouraging.
Discouraging?
It's discouraging. No. And so I don't like it, but I love the gameplay so much that I think that will power me through it, especially if I get like a really good weapon set, ability set, etc. And you know what? Returnal is not very good at telling you what things do either. I think you played it to the point where I talked about it.
You were sort of explaining some of the finer details that I would have had to learn through like the thing about
Did we talk about the astronaut?
We have, I think.
You get
memories?
You get an astronaut figure, like after you meet the astronaut.
Yeah, the astronaut that she sees in her visions or whatever.
And I did not know what that thing did until I died a second time after getting it. And then it's like, oh hey, by the way, the astronaut will save you from death. Once. And it's like, oh, okay. I got an ability which was not a permanent one. It was a temporary one. And it was like, oh, whatever it was called, it seems to help with dash. Like your dash ability. Okay, well, what does it do? Because when I would dash,
it helps with it.
Yeah, right. But it did nothing. Like it did nothing obvious. It did nothing like
it increased the dash speed by 0.01%. Richard,
probably.
I can't believe you couldn't tell.
No,
moving
an
extra pixel.
Thanks, Housemark. I got to the same. It's like a frozen tundra area. I got to the same point I've been dying at, and I died again. And so I've just been getting a little bit discouraged by Returnal. But I swear I will go back to play it more often as soon as I get tired of the other game I'm playing, which I started Disco Elysium.
Oh, nice.
And have you played it yet?
No, that's one that I want to play on the Switch really bad.
Is it on Switch?
It's not yet. It's coming though.
Is it? Did they confirm that?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And it feels like there's a lot of reading and a lot of thinking, and I don't want to do that at my desktop because.
Okay.
Coward.
Yeah. That's fair. Because if I did not, so I bought the final cut, the newest version of it, which I think is just the only version you can get on PC anyways. And the added voice acting into it, because it didn't have voice acting in the first place, the added voice acting in it is, I've never played the first version, but I can tell you it's a godsend. Because there is Disco Elysium. Can we consider that this year as a new release? because like it's like my game of the year.
Did it release last year or 2019?
It released last year.
Well, because I know last year it got tons of game of the year praise and lots of good reviews and stuff.
It released last year, I'm very certain, but the Final Cut released this year on all the other consoles. Anyways, this game is astonishing. Like, and I've only played about 5 hours so far. And maybe it's my small gamer brain talking because the game is developed this way, but what I love about it is that it's, first off, feels like it's actively watching you and learning from you playing the entire time.
Interesting.
And it changes the narrative.
Came out in 2019.
Oh, 2 years ago. Okay. Yeah. So it changes the narrative kind of as you're playing, which is awesome. And I'll get to examples. Secondly, it is the storytelling that I absolutely adore, which is along the same lines of Alan Wake and Control. There is lots of inner dialogue, not necessarily from you, but technically from you. Let's start from the beginning. You make your character, which is you choose your archetype if you want, the smart guy, the rough guy, or if you just want like the more like neutral character. And then you have a build your own character. You can put your stats into whatever you want. From there, you have a branching path of 4 other. There's a lot, but it'll branch into your like
multiple.
Yeah, it'll branch to like your endurance, your strength, your intelligence, whatever,
etc., etc.
And then those will have like your rhetoric or your
branching paths in those.
Yeah, branching paths in those. So you can choose your points into the main ones, and then you can choose 1 extra point to start off with. You start the game, and it's kind of like the narrator's like, there's nothing. Like, you're kind of just here. And then something happens, the kind of like starting a big bang, and you choose things. So it's already giving you this test of like what you're going to be.
Yeah.
And after you're done with all of that, you wake up as your character. And my character portrait looks vastly different from the ones that I've seen in trailers.
Interesting.
So I'm thinking that whatever choices you choose, that will affect that character. As you go through the game, your main character knows nothing. Like, you have complete amnesia from what has happened in the past like 3 days, but you know that you are not in a good state of mind. And everyone in your vicinity that you've interacted with however many days ago also knows that, and they all kind of hate you right now. And you're a cop. So you're trying to, the first hour of the game is you like trying to piece together not only what's going on, but also how you want to proceed as a person throughout the game. And of course you have varying responses to people, and angry, being a jerk, being a nice guy,
sarcastic,
whatever. And of course you have checks, which are my favorite thing. You, based on whatever stats you have, it will do an automatic dice roll to see if you pass your check and if you succeed or not. Obviously D&D rules.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, no, and it's so cool. It also does that by making your internal monologue all of your different branching paths. So like, if any decision that you need to make has anything to do with like, I used it before, like your rhetoric side of your mind will come into the dialogue and be like, hey, like, and it will explain to you like what is going on. Like I have a big encyclopedia branching path. So my intelligence is high. So anytime someone talks about like, what type of gun do you have? Like my encyclopedia part of my mind will come in on the text box and it'll be like, hey, by the way, that's a gun that was made in this, because you knew that.
That's awesome.
And it's like, oh my God, like, and it's so interesting because it's I'm pretty certain a fictionalized world. And there's so much information to this fictionalized world that I am so enthralled, but yet overwhelmed by it. My favorite part of the game so far, sorry, I'm going to grab my phone because I need to grab the images for this. I needed to get past this guy on the dock. There's so much to the game, but right now there is a strike of union workers on the dock against the business. The business is not letting the workers into the dock or whatnot. And you have to get past this big bodyguard that they set up.
Yeah.
And you can get past them by two ways. One, you can obviously with your brute strength take them out if you want to, which I don't have brute strength, so I couldn't. Or
so you finesse it.
You can finesse it. However, the only way you can finesse it is if you know as much about racial economics as he does.
Wow.
Because he is a part of a particular ethnic group.
Yeah.
And as soon as you start talking to him, he's just like, you don't know nothing about my race. You fucked us. And here, and you will go on this whole tangent. And I did. And I admittedly did not listen to anything he said. Because it was all in big caps letters, the way he talked, because he's very, that's his character. And so by the end of it, right before the conversation was over, my rhetoric came in and it was like, whoa, wait a minute. All those responses you gave that guy, he's like, sounds like you want to start communism. And I was like, I don't like, and it says right here, it's like word on, and it was comedic. It's like word on the street is you want to start communism again. And I was like, how come there's word on the street? Like that was my response. And I was like, you keep saying things like down with the bourgeoisie and this and that and stuff. And it's like, whoa, okay. And so I was like, no, I haven't said anything like that. But the rhetoric was like, there it is. You're avoiding this. And like your mind knows that you're doing it. So I go through all of I'm like, okay, all right, fine. Let's start communism. And so the rhetoric gets happy, and the rhetoric's like, all right, let's get the firing squads, let's round up everybody, and so I'm like,
0 to 10.
I'm like, whoa, wait, no, I don't want to do that. And the rhetoric's like, no, it's too late now. We're starting we're starting communism, baby. And I chose to finish the thought. And as soon as I finished the thought, I gained, when you do certain things, you gain a sub research bonus of some sort. I gained Mazovian socioeconomics that I can install to my brain pathways to give me like while I'm learning it, I have -2 of visual calculus. And visual calculus is like your oh my God, I can't remember the word, but being able to like piece together something in your mind very quickly.
Like deduction?
Yeah, you guess it like your deduction. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And so I had to keep that in my mind to let it fester for like the 3-hour time that it took to complete that. When that was done, I could go back to that guy and complete the conversation, and he let me through, and then
that is beautiful.
Do all of that. And it's really awesome. But while you're doing, like, things happen like that all over the game. Like your your like neural pathways, your like impulses, because you're kind of a alcoholic druggie. Sometimes if you like come across drugs or come across like a for instance like a cigarette, like a woman didn't fully complete, like that electronic impulse will come into your chat and be like, hey, you want to grab that and you want to take a drag, don't you? And you can just choose to ignore the thought or like run with it if you want. And like I said, I'm just so like over the moon in this game, and things can work the way you want to, and things can work not the way you want to, even though you're trying to make it work.
Yeah.
And it could be your fault. It could not be your fault, but you could also like choose something wrong and your morale takes a hit and you get like -1 morale, and you have to like build that back up somehow with drugs or with choosing the right selection. It is a wild game. I picked it up on the Steam store, but I can't wait to get more further into it, because like on top of everything, you're trying to solve a mystery as well, and people get into the way of your investigation, and then you can find out new information to come back, and people hate you, and you have to find a way to like win them over again to tell you what you need. It is awesome, and I still feel like I barely have done anything.
Scratch the surface.
Yeah, and it sucks because and it's great because there's so much time I feel like I can spend on this game, and obviously not see even a quarter of it. because I didn't choose the right pathways to go into whatever, but
make the right selections at the start of the game.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I am so into this game, and awesome. I can't wait to play more.
Yeah, I've been waiting for the Switch release because when the game first came out, they said it was going to be on the Switch, and it's official that it's going to be on the Switch, but it just hasn't had a release date yet. I'm sure COVID has affected that, but those type of isometric, slower RPGs that you want to read and stuff like that, I would rather play them on either a console or my Switch, just because of all the reading and all the the thinking and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That I'm just more comfortable doing in bed or on a couch that I can't do on my PC. But no, that is interesting. So I keep everyone that talks about it says it's phenomenal. So it's just a matter of them releasing it on the Switch
soon, my man. Hopefully.
Hopefully. Okay, Connor.
Yes, so I have been playing Enlisted the past couple of days. Enlisted is a massive multiplayer of think Battlefield-esque. Yeah, Battlefield, where objectives, all that stuff.
Oh, okay.
Set in World War II, and it is a free-to-play game, and unfortunately, as it currently stands, it's still in beta. As it currently stands, it is looking like it is going to be having a massive pay-to-win model.
Oh, no. Okay.
Yeah. You can unlock things just by playing, but there is a massive incentive for just purchasing the in-game currency. So probably won't be playing much longer of it.
Does it, as you play, does it take way longer to gain stuff than it does just paying for it?
Yes and no. If you play consistently, then you'll be getting the cards to unlock things, stuff like that. But if you lose your login streak or anything like that, you're gonna have to start. Yeah. So it's a hit or miss. It does have some interesting features in it. It's squad based, but it's a single player squad.
Okay.
So you go into a match and you have a rifle squad, a sniper, an assault squad, and you unlock a tank early on. So you get those to go into a match with. And let's say you grab a rifle squad. Well, you start as the squad leader of the team, and then the AI takes over the rest of the squad. Keep going, doing your thing, and let's say you get shot and killed as your squad leader, but your rest of the squad is still available. So you can choose to play as one of them, and you just keep on going through that.
Yeah.
And then they have cooldown timers for when you can bring that squad back into the match, and it has each squad has so many times you can bring them back into the match. Again, it right now it does feel very much like it's leaning towards pay to win. That or just sinking hours and hours into it, much like pay to win models are.
Yeah.
Because I have been dive bombed by so many planes that are towards the end of the tech tree or purchasable.
Wow.
And the game's been out for a bit, but it's still in beta, and it's rank based. So I'm playing against people that are relatively around my rank. So either matchmaking is really messed up, or people are just buying these upper tier planes and dominating. So that's unfortunate.
Pay to win is another one of those things that people
get up in arms about.
And it doesn't. This isn't one that is, I don't think, is super debatable, because usually opposition to whether or not something is pay to win is if someone likes a game.
Yeah.
Then they have some emotional attachment to it, and so they don't want to admit that they like a pay to win game or something like that. But that sucks, because it feels like a lot of games like that you can just sometimes tell.
Yeah.
Halo 5 had their really interesting I forget, Warzone
requisitions.
Yeah.
Is it?
So it was called Warzone, I think. Halo 5 Warzone, and you could do requisitions, and some of the requisitions were ridiculous. Like there would be banshees that were super powerful and super armored and stuff like that, and you could earn them through using points to get rec packs, and the rec packs would open. So when you would spawn in a banshee, you could choose one of the higher level banshees to spawn in. But you could also buy rec packs. So you could just buy a bunch of these packs increase your chances of having a bunch of these super duper. And you could tell in games when it felt like you were playing people that had a ton of packs, because there would just be super powerful vehicles everywhere, and it would just be really dumb.
Yeah.
It would not be well balanced, or it would feel like this is all here to make money, this is all here because it's, you know, a well balanced game of pros and cons and stuff like that. But
I think I decided I hated that when I only had like one rocket launcher I could use, and you die immediately, and that rocket launcher's gone. Like you can't use it again, and it's like, well, that makes me feel like crap. Like,
and it was such an interesting mode too. It was sort of it was big team battle with little tiny elements of a MOBA, because you had your AI Marines would protect the bases that you captured. So I thought that was really neat.
They got rid of firefight for that mode.
Yeah, firefight. They put firefight back in the game. I don't know the status of it now, but it was matchmaking.
Don't matter anymore.
But it wasn't like firefight was with Halo Reach.
Right.
That was the best firefight for obvious reasons, but because it was just firefight, it wasn't firefight matchmaking where they had to implement microtransactions somehow. Yeah. Okay.
Just a quick anecdote about Enlisted. So one of the you obviously play, you know, Germans, Russians, Americans. No Japanese yet. I haven't seen anything, or Italians. So who knows? But I was playing as the Russians, and it was the first time I was playing in the T-60 light tank, and everything is first person. So you're driving from the driver's viewport. Cool. Yeah, it's amazing. Until you don't see the trenches in front of you, and you nosedive into a trench, and your tank is now immobilized. So you have to get out and walk around as a tanker with only a pistol.
It still kind of sounds cool, but yeah, that sucks.
Yeah, it's
crashing.
I didn't get a shot off. I turned around a corner, didn't see the trenches there, and I just nosedived right into it.
Oh, okay.
And then I got berated by the chat.
Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, buddy.
Yeah, most times you lose. So I've gotten back into Company of Heroes. Don't really know why. Just
it's a good
game to go back to. And that mod just makes it insane and super fun, where the AI just tosses units at you from the beginning, and all you can do is put up defenses and hold out until the AI decides to give up, and then you push in
infantry charge.
Yeah, and I've been playing more Cruelty Squad, which continues to entertain me. Cruelty Squad can also be really difficult, cruel, you could say. I was stuck on a mall level for a really long time. This mall level is interesting because it's a really big level. It has lots of secrets, and they introduce a new enemy type, which are these giant mech dudes that have machine guns. And their machine guns fire a lot of rounds, they're super powerful, so you have to be careful of them. And so it got really difficult trying to take these dudes out because they take a lot of damage. And the mall has 2 floors to it, but the floors are high enough that dropping will give you fall damage, and the only way to get up to one is to either have a super powerful jump or find the stairs. So you can sort of get yourself caught like on a level, and it's not easy to get up to the second level of the mall. And it's kind of difficult to find the exits of the level, too. So in Cruelty Squad, you're sent to assassinate somebody. And when you do that, you have to find an exit to the level and exit safely. So it took me a while to do that. But another thing that happened was I was trying to piece... It was sort of... I pieced the level together. So at first it was, all right, how do I get to the target? Now, once I get to the target, once I learn that part of the level, then it's, okay, what do I do to escape after I take out the target? And so I experimented and found a couple routes, and one route was through ventilation shafts. Ooh, okay. And so I'm going through ventilation shafts, and I don't have a lot of health. And all of a sudden, I turn a corner in these tiny little ventilation shafts, and there are these rats. And one of the rats bit me, and it slowly takes 50 health away. And you have 100 health. So my character died. So I had to restart the entire level. So I was doing it in pieces. So all right, have to get to the target, go through the shafts. When I go through the shafts, the rats are going to be around this corner, take out the rats around this corner, and then it turns out that ventilation shaft led to essentially a dead end. Wow. So I had to figure out another way to sort of break through a window and then safely jump down the side of a mountain to get out of that, at least that area.
I guess the assumption is that the rats are diseased.
Yeah, they have some kind of poison in them or something like that.
Gotcha.
But
future cybertech poison.
But it was fun. It was frustrating because it was just like, oh, son of a bitch. The good thing is it's easy to get money in the game. So
especially with trading fish.
Especially with trading fish or picking up body parts or whatever. So even if you lose, you probably can make $1,000 or so, and so maybe you can save. So you're always getting something even when you lose.
All right.
But the next level is interesting because there's sort of been a twist in the story. You are playing as a villain. You're playing as somebody who isn't employed by a company that's doing lots of bad things.
Yeah.
And the world sort of gives you hints about how you're impacting the rest of the world in little ways. So if you talk to at this mall, your assassination target is the mayor, I think, of some town. And if you talk to one of the mall goers, a line that they'll say is something like, "I really don't like the new mayor. He's making things really tough on people like me, rich people." And I was like, oh, so I'm obviously playing as a bad guy here. And if you look at previous
baddies,
if you look at previous levels, it's clear that you're sort of playing a villain, that you're a piece of a corporate cog that they throw out to help further their corporate interests in a giant dystopian world, which is interesting. But the next level after that, I won't spoil anything, but it throws in a twist, which is going to be interesting.
Yeah, that's nice.
That's all I've played. So we will move on.
All right.
We want to give a massive shout out to the sponsors of this episode. They have been silently supporting us since the very beginning, and we felt it was time to give them some love. The like and share buttons have been at our side since episode 1 of the podcast. They can be found just beneath this episode. Please give them a click, it helps us greatly. If you're feeling lucky, click the bell icon to enter for a notification anytime we post new content. You may be surprised by what you get.
We're going to have to figure out something to do during that, because we play it live now. So
yeah,
there's their episode on Family Guy where it goes back to like what they do during cuts, and it's like they all break out cigarettes. I don't know if that's what we need to do, but anyway.
All right, I guess we'll start pick up smoking.
Play a quick game of Twilight Imperium, maybe. I don't know.
Have a quick fist fight.
The future of Assassin's Creed is as a live service. This is according to Jason Schreier Bloomberg.
Jason Schreier report.
The project is codenamed Assassin's Creed Infinity, and the plan is to create a massive online platform that evolves over time. Reading straight from the story, quote, "Whereas previous Assassin's Creeds unfolded in specific historical settings, Infinity will contain multiple settings with room to expand to others in the months and years following its debut. Individual games on the platform may look and feel different, but they will all be connected," end quote. Details surrounding the project are in flux, and it's still years out from release. I think a date or a year Schreier tweeted was at like after 2024. So we're looking super far ahead. Ubisoft Montreal and Quebec will collaborate on the project, with Quebec taking the lead. This reorganization has prompted new complaints on Ubisoft's internal message boards regarding the company's response to the reports of toxicity and abusive behavior that all came out last summer. Some managers accused of abusive behavior are still in senior positions. When asked about these complaints, a Ubisoft spokeswoman said, quote, "Any employee that had allegations and remains at Ubisoft has had their case rigorously reviewed by a third party and were either exonerated or underwent appropriate disciplinary actions. Employees who have been under investigation would not remain at Ubisoft if results of the investigations were a determination," end quote.
Okay. First off, about Assassin's Creed as a live service. One, why?
Well, I mean, that's an easy answer.
Well, yeah, but aside from capitalism, why?
Use the button.
I'm sorry.
We're not just
There, thank you.
This is why.
Oh, that's why.
We're doing it for
Richard's doing my job for me.
So aside from the monetary aspect of them being able to, bleed this like a pig, there's Assassin's Creed, I think, personally, I think works better as a enclosed story than an open or than a live play service.
Whatever this will be.
Yeah, whatever this will be.
It's really strange. Sorry, continue.
It sounds incomplete. It sounds like an idea more than a game.
Yeah.
And again, we have another Ubisoft story, and still nothing from Ysgamon.
Well, so I haven't checked every week since. So
nothing major enough that's popped up.
Yes, you would think if he had apologized somewhere. I apologize for the company that I was the CEO with going so apeshit crazy for so long. Instead of, I apologize that this happened at our company. People abused my trust. I'm a victim in this too. Hint, hint, wink, wink. So they've tiptoed around that.
Mm-hmm.
The details are sparse and it's up in the air. This very much feels like an executive or some shareholder that knows the kids like live services and is like, can you do that with Assassin's Creed without really understanding what any of it means? And their Assassin's Creed games are already live service games. Like they're packed with microtransactions and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I guess like the only way I can imagine this working, and I say imagine because there could be other ways that I can't imagine, is that you pay a subscription and then every time a new entry comes, it's almost like Netflix, but if just everything on Netflix was Assassin's Creed, like that's the only way that it would make sense.
Just gonna call it the Animus service.
Is to try and merge Assassin's Creed, and it comes across as something that is, I don't know, it just makes me roll my eyes.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure Ubisoft doesn't need it, and I haven't played an Assassin's Creed in a long time. But the previous Assassin's Creeds have all gotten like really good reviews, and they're better now, and and so I was like, oh, maybe I'll pick up the next one. Who knows?
Probably not now.
And it just feels like this is not a step that would make that better.
Yeah, for sure. And then there's already I am trying to go through the Rolodex of games I'm familiar with that are, one, I assume if it's a live service, it's always online.
Yeah.
And two, if it is a live service, how many live service games are there that are single player only? Which I can't think of any. So either this has to be an MMO or some sort of like...
Well, I think... So, continue your thought. I'm sorry.
Or some sort of like multiplayer game of some sort. Then then your comment about the last several Assassin's Creeds being... well received, that opinion is now dwindling again because we've gotten to the point where Assassin's Creed has grown so much since Origins that now it's too big and people want it smaller.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you're speaking like the volume of stuff to do.
The gameplay itself, yeah.
Okay.
And so now that people were wanting or maybe hoping for a new Assassin's Creed game that is smaller in scope, now it's like a live service that's going to be a continuous like Assassin's Creed world, but we don't, like Connor said, it's an idea, so we have no idea what this will bring us.
Yeah. I want to make clear, it doesn't seem like the idea is to somehow shoehorn in a multiplayer element. Because live service, I think, while live service has the connotation of it being multiplayer or interactive somehow, which you could maybe make it interactive somehow. Maybe you have a bunch of assassins running around a hub or something like in Destiny. Like Far Cry, like there are live service elements of Far Cry, right? Where they have microtransactions, at least with Far Cry 5. They had microtransactions and they had events that they advertised on the main menu and stuff like that. So there are live service elements, even though there weren't like big live service tropes that you'd see in a Destiny or whatever. But that's what makes it confusing, is because live service is associated so much with multiplayer. Mm-hmm. So what do you... And Assassin's Creed is all... like, even if you were to apply the single player... the things that I see as sort of a single player live service, like microtransactions or what have you, or continuous updates or whatever. It seems like games already do that, you know?
Yeah.
Like Cyberpunk's going to get continuous updates. Like I don't know how without the multiplayer element, like if you said that Cyberpunk was a live service, I wouldn't say you were wrong because there's continuous updates and they have all these big things coming and they don't have microtransactions, but that's what Assassin's Creed has. So I guess what I'm trying to say is I don't understand what else you could do besides multiplayer, but I don't want to say that
unless they're just going to do shorter development times and just do smaller settings.
And when I say multiplayer, I don't mean the entire thing is multiplayer, but some element, some sociable element, right? That encourages interaction somehow.
Yeah.
And I don't know how that works. But it comes across very corporate-y. It comes across very shoehorny. Like there's no... I don't know. It just doesn't feel... It feels like you're trying to... It just doesn't make sense. Yeah. It feels very spitball-y. And it makes me annoyed. Because Assassin's Creed, I feel like, has gained momentum. And maybe, but I haven't played them. This is just from the outside looking in. It doesn't seem like this is something that is with the goal in mind of continuing to better Assassin's Creed. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I
mean, outside of multiplayer, the only other thing is either smaller little chunks that they put out, or just it's one game and then there's big chunks where they put out. But if the latter is the case, why not just make full games?
I don't want to speculate what the specifics could be too much because it's all so much in there.
I hope it's not a multiplayer.
But even then, it's just one of those things where it's a spitball. But even like you're throwing stuff up against a wall to see what sticks, but there's no wall there. Like, it doesn't even make sense. Like, what are you talking about? You know? So I guess that's my confusion with the whole thing.
I would hate a multiplayer Assassin's Creed. That would just not be fun. For me personally, other people might like it. Good for them. Have more fun.
Yeah,
I wouldn't play it though because that just doesn't seem fun.
Hasn't there been a multiplayer?
Yeah, there's been online multiplayer.
Yeah, but it was separate from
from the game.
It wasn't the game.
Sure. Yeah.
And that's like even then, like having, let's say, if you took the Odyssey world. And it's just like you are playing your own story, but there's just a bunch of other assassins. That doesn't make sense. Like
that's kind of strange.
Other assassins running around, Like
with the Odyssey world, it makes a little bit more sense because then it's like the other mercenaries in the world.
Oh yeah, that does. But I think they had a good thing going, particularly with their community service on Odyssey and Origins, where you can make people can make their own missions, and like you can go to a portal and be like, would you like to play this person's mission? Go in there. But of course we know that they're going to do stuff like, oh, this is the season of like Brotherhood, where you'll get like outfits from Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, or and it'll be the battle pass for that season or whatnot. But this is strange, and who knows, maybe it is. I'm not wishing for anybody's jobs to be eliminated, but maybe this is an idea that eventually it'll just be like, we can't make this work, and then it'll falter. Because I mean, it sounds like we're a couple years out from this thing, and that's plenty of time for them to decide that they don't want to do this anymore. But we do know that earlier this year, Ubisoft was explaining that they wanted to pretty much make all their games live service.
And
AAA stuff.
And that's why I feel like it feels like an executive, like, and it feels like an executive, kind of like in the same way that, like a baseball executive sees his team doing really well. And he's like, why are we so good? The manager's like, oh, we've got this great pitcher. And so the baseball executive's like, oh, okay, just get me more great pitchers. Like, oh yeah, I'll just go get you a bunch of
the pitcher
top tier pitchers. So it's like, why is Division doing so good? Oh, it's a live service. Oh, make everything else a live service. It's like, what are you talking? Do you even know what that means?
No, they don't.
So there's one half, and that's sort of my cynical half that I imagine goes on here. The other thing is, so like I said, I don't want to speculate about, because I have no idea. So the exact model, but I do think things that you guys said are correct because. Or I don't think it's unreasonable to assume certain things, because live service does entail player retention and continuous monetization and long tails, right? But Assassin's Creed already has that. So I guess the idea is maybe to try and get more people underneath that, I don't know. We'll talk about Apex Legends. There's the Apex Legends story that we'll talk about. Sort of has a lot of the same angles to it that this one does. But you know what, Ubisoft? How about this? Fix your culture and just release good games and don't worry about live service. How about that? Cut your CEO's pay in half. He doesn't need half of it. You have the rest of developers like artists and stuff like that, and just focus on making really good single player games.
That's right.
You'll never go out of business.
Redistribute the wealth.
There you go.
Let's start communism.
This is a politics show.
Beyond Good and Evil 2 is going to be a live service game. Watch.
Oh, I'm sure it is. That one makes more sense because
if they're making an entire universe, quote unquote,
quote unquote,
with
that,
more people.
that makes more sense. Not that I like it, but anyway. Okay.
Nintendo has revealed their new Switch OLED model. Rumors from earlier this year stated that Nintendo was going to release a newer, updated console. Original rumors were that it was going to have 4K display, more powerful processor, etc., and OLED screen. But it turns out that what Nintendo revealed was simply a new Nintendo Switch, remodel of Nintendo Switch that has a 7-inch OLED screen, 64 gigabytes of internal storage, a wider adjustable stand, thank God, improved speakers. The resolution still remains 1280 by 720, and the battery life from about 4.5 to 9 hours is unchanged. It will cost $349.99, and it will release October 8th of this year.
This makes sense, and it's sort of like Axios sort of thing about this is how Nintendo has done with a lot of their handhelds in the past.
Yeah, their handhelds.
So it makes sense. But I may be wrong about this. Well, I don't know what question I want to
ask me. Let's go.
Richard, how are babies? No.
What? Wait a minute.
So,
wait a minute, man.
This isn't a politics show.
So a stork flies over. So no Nintendo handheld in the past has been as expensive as a Switch, right?
No.
Like even
that is correct.
Like even in counting for inflation, which we can't do off the top of our heads.
Yeah,
I would imagine like nowhere near 300, right?
Right.
So the Switch is a handheld. It's also their main console. It's also selling extremely well.
Very well. I believe it's the best-selling system the last 34 months in a row, or 36 months in a row.
The thing that I'm curious about is one, and if you know off the top of your head, that'll be great, but this is sort of obscure, is one, if the mid-generation upgrades to handheld systems continued sales numbers or ticked sales numbers up, or what effect they had, and then two, how would that carry over to the same effect on Switch? Does that make sense? Right?
Yes, that does.
Okay. What do you think? Because I really don't know. Because I don't know how well previous things have sold off the top of my head.
It goes both ways, but at the end of the day, when you look up the sales numbers for handhelds, a lot of times they're lumped in together. They're not separated.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
So particularly 3DS has several different models: the Nintendo 3DS, the 2DS, the new 3DS XL, the 3DS XL, the new 2DS XL. So it has like 5 or 6 different models, but they're all just lumped in as the 3DS family.
Okay,
they're not lumped in sales wise. So you could probably get a very precise number on that, but you're probably not going to I guess at the end of the day it doesn't matter. But yeah, no, you're right, and you're right about the Axio story. This is part of the course for Nintendo. But we still may see an upgrade. I know a lot of course, people online are upset that there are no substantial upgrades.
4K.
The 4K, the better processor, et cetera. But Nintendo came out with the original Game Boy in 1989, and 7 years later in 96, they came out with the Game Boy Pocket, which was just the same system, but smaller. They changed nothing else about it. And then 3 years later, the Game Boy Color came out, which was an incremental upgrade. And then 3 years later, the Game Boy Advance came out, which was like a huge jump. So this is kind of the same timeline. We have a system that came out in 2017. 4 years later, a new incremental version will come out. We may see that upgrade, or they could just do something completely different, knowing Nintendo.
In the next for the Switch color.
In the next 2 years, So I mean, Sony did the same thing with the PSP. 2005, they had the PSP, and then couple years later, they came out with the slimmer model with the brighter LED, a better screen, same price. I mean, it's for people who have a Switch already. Sure, whatever, we don't need it. But for new buyers, they're not going to know the difference.
Yeah,
it's the Switch.
So I guess I really wish we could get our, like, in 5 years, we could see how the sales numbers change. Because it's a $50 difference. But that $50 gets you, what's the original storage on the 32, right?
32 gigabyte, yeah.
So it's double the storage. It's not that big, not much bigger of a screen, but it's kind of a bigger screen. But OLED's a really nice screen.
Yes.
It's not more pixels, but it's better pixels, right? It's sort of the retail associate line. But OLED is like really, 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 really nice pixels. So, like, in my mind, if I'm someone who's going to go out and buy a Switch and I have to pick between, hey, this or the Switch OLED model, I think $50 is well worth the jump to an OLED screen.
Sure.
Especially if I'm playing Breath of the Wild the first time or whatever, and I can't wait for it to be undocked and, playing it on
those
the
colors will pop for sure. For sure.
But yeah,
don't let it deter you from the fact that the PlayStation Vita came out in 2011 with an OLED
Wait, it
screen.
did?
Yes, it did.
I did not know that.
Yes, it did. And they had to change it to LCD because it cost too much.
Really?
Yeah, a couple years later. So
interesting.
Sony did it first.
And the Vita's still around?
No, it's not.
They're charged.
It died a couple years back. Sorry. It could have been. It could have been if Sony tried, but whatever.
Do you blame that on Sony or do you blame that on?
I blame it on Sony.
Okay, because I really don't know where I stand. I mean, it's one of those things where I could see people saying, well, not enough people bought it, but I don't know. I tend to
it's
side.
definitely the consumer's fault.
I tend to side on like more the consumer side. Like,
touch.
A concrete story will come out within the next 5 years, but as of right now, I feel multiple things that happen to it. So
okay, I know there's lots of opinions about the Vita. It's a very touchy subject. Apex Legends was hacked over the weekend, and the hack apparently proved nothing. Hackers inserted messages into Apex Legends playlists and notifications. The messages, and the hack in general, was in response to Titanfall being hacked, and the Apex hackers apparently wanted to raise awareness of the hackings happening in Titanfall. So are we following? It's like a dumb version of Black Mirror. Okay. Ryan K. Ringy, the director of communications at Respawn, quote tweeted an article about devs being forced into work, and in response to the article said, quote, "Nobody wants to hear devs complain when DDoS attacks are still a problem we haven't solved. But this article is right. I was holding my newborn nephew when I found out about the Apex hack. Had to hand him back, go to work, and miss out on a day with my family. Sunday's attack was tied to an awareness campaign that we've already publicly acknowledged. The problem's not awareness. It's that DDoSing in particular is just a hard problem to solve. We will solve this. When we do, I promise you it won't be because hackers made us aware. By ruining a holiday, they achieved nothing of value," end quote. A few things before I continue with the notes of the story. One thing is the end of that just makes me think of
Billy Madison.
No, well, actually, a little bit of Billy Madison.
I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
But also Gene Wilder. You lose. You get nothing. Good day, sir. The other thing that I wanted to do is he put he gave links to other times that they have addressed this. So he actually gave receipts. And the other thing that I wanted to say is, so DDoSing is when a server is overloaded, correct? Yeah. Okay, I just wanted to put that out there for anyone listening that doesn't know what DDoS is. I don't know how it works either. I just know when it's a server that's overloaded. Axios pointed out a few other people around the industry saying things about the hack. Scott Lowe, a senior comms director at Naughty Dog, said in response to the hack, quote, "This sucks. If there's one thing the Apex Titanfall hack proved, it's that ever-increasing expectations for new content, long-term support, and release cadence versus the development realities and human/monetary cost of live operations games have become impossible to reconcile," end quote. John Junzek, I believe, Halo community manager at 343 said, quote, "You cannot claim to be in favor of a healthy gaming industry, aka anti-crunch, but then support a hacker who intentionally targeted a holiday weekend, knowing it meant taking people away from their families and force people to work," end quote. Oops, hit my mic. Didn't mean to.
They achieve nothing of value. I love that quote because I think it's absolutely true. It sucks that your game is no longer supported and is overrun by hackers and people making it not fun. But like I tell people who come into my store and they say, "Hey, how come a PS4 game doesn't work on a PS3?" People ask that. And it's like I tell them, it's like, look, this is technology. Technology does not care about the past. It cares about it goes forward, cares about the future. In the gaming industry, like people, unfortunately, unless your game is really, really good and really solid, people do not care about your old game, especially if it's an online game, unless it was huge at the time and continued to stay huge. There are outliers like World of Warcraft, EverQuest, Final Fantasy 7, but shooters come and go all the time.
Yeah.
In Modern Warfare, the original Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare, hackers are all over the place. But these Call of Duty players aren't hacking, Cold War to say, why aren't you helping our game? It's because they've moved on. And as good as Titanfall is, as good as Titanfall 2 is, unfortunately, it's just not a game that's played enough to warrant having this development team focus on working on that game. And I know that the hackers stated something like, you're selling a product that people can't play. And it's unfortunately, it's like, yeah, that happens with everything. Like there are many games that I wish I can get on Steam, but just compatibility issues from like Windows 95 to, Windows 10 just doesn't make that possible unless you change the coding or patch something,
Yeah.
I think this really does suck. And as somebody who recently got into Apex, again, I was not affected by this, but it did suck to hear the news all day of this. And we don't hear about the other side sometimes, the people who work on this game.
Yeah.
But, Ryan, the director of communications at Respawn, having to say something like, although I'm not going to say if he didn't have to say it or not, but saying like, hey, I had to like drop everything I was doing with my family to go work because you guys wanted to be selfish. It really sucks to hear that. And we don't think about that because it's our consumeristic mindset of like, no, give me what I want now, because I'm home on my day off and I want to play video games and you're not letting me do that, so it sucks, but that's what it is.
I think there are a lot of angles here. We were talking about games as a service. I think one thing, and it's a thought that I have trouble pinning down. I think the idea of communities is overblown, and less substantial than PR people on Twitter and stuff like that make it out to me. I guess what I mean by that is before Cyberpunk, there was a Cyberpunk community, like on the subreddit, right?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Now Cyberpunk went south. Okay. For a person in the quote unquote Cyberpunk community, right? When Cyberpunk went south, it was when it released and it was bad. It was a sucky day for them, right? But developers, their entire lives are dealing with the fallout, right? So I guess when we talk about games and how there's this relationship between the quote unquote community and the development teams and stuff like that, I guess sometimes I get annoyed because games do not matter more to anyone than the people that work on them, right? Because it's their job.
Yeah.
Now you can still criticize developers for doing things. You can criticize games and stuff, and there are tasteful, measured, correct ways to do all that. But this just taps into something that I have a hard time defining. Because when I see a post on r/Halo and it's this essay about all these little tiny things that need to change and the minutia, or a post in, you know, some live service game about drop rates in this specific area after 500 hours of playing, you know, and it's just like, I don't know, the amount it matters to you is less than the amount it matters to the developers, I feel like, most of the time. That's just off intuition, right? So what I'm trying to get there is, like, I'm sure that, and they've made it clear that they knew stuff was going on in Titanfall. But I also think, and as much as we are advocates for game preservation and figuring out, you know, you talked about how games, you know, there's just a reality that because of digital decay and stuff like that, not all games are going to make it on GOG one day. You know, I was amazed when the Blade Runner game from '97 got on GOG, because apparently that game was lost forever, but it got on GOG somehow. But there's just certain realities in technology that are going to stop that from happening. And as much as we should advocate for game preservation, I also accept that the realities of the situation are realities, right? And I also will criticize companies that don't do things that they could do to help with games preservation, right? But you can believe that and also believe that Respawn shouldn't have to juggle, batting down hackers on like 3 different games, right? Especially when one of their games is this gigantic live service game that just came out 4 years ago, right? That they're still working on, or that they've continued working on since. And Titanfall came out in 2013, 14?
13.
13?
Yeah, it was a launch title for
Titanfall
Xbox
is almost
One,
a 10-year-old game, right?
Yeah.
So I guess it's just incredibly nuanced, right? Like, I understand frustration with when a game becomes super filled with hackers, but I also understand there are realities with how development teams can spend their times, while also understanding that publishers out there could probably spend more resources helping things like this. Maybe not this specifically, but this in general, and don't, because publishers' aims are not in making games the best they can be, but in increasing shareholder value.
Right.
Yeah.
And fuck them. So, sorry. So, may have been a little harsh there, and I don't care. Like, we're talking about Ubisoft earlier. Got my blood pumping a bit. So yeah, I guess, does any of that make sense?
Yeah, of course.
I think it's layered. I think it's complicated. The solution, however, is not this, because this is just silly, and this is straight out of, like, this is a meme. Like, this is something you would expect in a sketch comedy show to make fun of angry gamers. You know what I mean?
It's a temper tantrum.
Yes. And then I think the other angle is just at what point do we, I don't know, at what point can we separate how often people work on, like, live service games, right? Like, it can't become a 24/7 thing.
I feel once the sequel to the game comes out, it can be expected that the first game won't be getting, much attention anymore.
Sure,
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Yes, absolutely.
Especially when the game's pushing 10 years old.
Yeah.
I mean, at that point, you're also dealing with possibly an entirely different staff.
Oh yeah, good point.
So, and it's, even if they were working on it, these new hires coming in, they're going to be wanting to work on the next stuff that the company is working on, not going back and managing old, games.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just, my opinion on that. But I feel like once there is a shelf life for games,
yes,
especially so, and that shelf life gets a lot shorter if the game gets a sequel.
And if I think it gets a lot shorter if we expect people to continuously update and expand games that they just released a few years ago, right? So if you want all kinds of brand new updates to a game that just released, then you cannot expect that same team to do the same thing for 3 other games, especially games that released almost coming up on 10 years ago, right?
I think
that's
a lot
a
less
reasonable thing to
upset
believe.
about Titanfall dealing with hackers than I am with Red Dead 2 Online dealing with hackers.
Exactly. That's a really good point. Because one of those came out 4 years ago or 3 years ago or whatever.
Well, the multiplayer came out 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah. People say games are unplayable a lot, and a lot of times it's hyperbolic. It's like someone plays a game for 1,000 hours. 2 of that is a hacker. So, it's unplayable. Yeah. But no, I will tell you, Red Dead Online is ridiculous.
Where it is literally
you run into
unplayable.
hackers. It literally becomes unplayable. It's astonishing how often you run into hackers in Red Dead Online. Yes.
And it's kind of interesting, the stuff that, obviously what the hackers do to the players is interesting, but some of the like strange safeguards, like the trader missions, you guys got pulled off into oblivion by a hacker, and because I was on a dedicated vehicle, I wasn't.
That was
so
weird.
I was able to complete my trading mission without getting
by
ambushed by other players because they were all getting hacked to one corner of the map.
That was a surreal experience. That was definitely strange. I think I've said all I want to say about it. I have a tough time pinning. One thing I saw on Twitter and this is why I don't browse Twitter. You could say the sky is blue on Twitter, and somebody's like, it's ridiculous. But somebody said, was essentially arguing that the hackers aren't the bad guys. It's the developer's boss for making them work. And it's just like, what a way to miss a point.
Yeah.
What a way to just a bit outside. He tried the corner on that one, right? Like, if someone is hacking your game, you just can't decide, well, I guess they can do whatever they want with it.
Yeah.
Like, obviously, you just can't, like, that's not an option. So,
rephrase that. You can't expect that response for when it's the current game that the company is currently working on, not the game
That is
released
making
10 years
lots of
ago.
money.
yes.
There you go.
Yes. But, I don't know. I just thought that was such a crazy thing to say on Twitter. But that's why I don't browse Twitter, because people say crazy things all the time, and it gives me anxiety.
My Twitter lately has just been a lot of hot dogs.
Which, is that a euphemism? Or?
No,
No, it's a callback.
Well, I mean, yes, but no. No, it's because of I Think You Should Leave, the Tim Robbins comedy series.
Gotcha.
If you haven't watched it, watch it. It's surreal humor, and I love it.
Surreal.
There's one part that's like really sad, though.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Are we ready to move on a little bit?
Oh, yeah.
A man discusses the news, but not like the big news, the little news. Little bit. This is the tidbits.
Got some more tidbits this week, obviously. We'll start it with Tencent deploying a facial recognition verification system. This
Filthy human piece of garbage.
Sorry.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Spot on.
Especially children. This will be used to help monitor players and detect individuals who spend a significant amount of time online at night, according to the company. The focus will be primarily aimed towards minors and keeping them offline from 10 p.m. to 8 a.m. Very unsure of how that will work, but that's
Electronic shocks.
Yeah, but well,
So if I had a phone and I had like a cutout of someone's face, like, I don't know, if I just cut out Harrison Ford up there in the poster, could I just like hold that in front of my phone?
Just-
and do
I
the-
can imagine Tyler doing that, and just every once in a while, I'm going to kill my wife.
Just straight up Silence of the Lambs, just skin mask.
Yeah, there you go.
All right, Connor takes it to 11. Sure, okay. Continue, Richard.
Last of Us HBO series, first season will be 10 episodes long. Not much else to say about that.
Seems pretty.
Well, I mean, except for the fact that it said first season, so
Oh, okay.
it insinuates we'll be getting more.
Well, I mean, depending on how well the first season was received.
Yeah.
But that seems about the right length for like a mini series that could possibly expand more.
Yeah.
And I think Naughty Dog games are games that could make a good transition to
Oh, well, they're already
To on-screen
cinematic masterpieces.
Yes.
on-screen storytelling, or however you want to put it.
Yeah, and I think depending on how they film it, how they cut things, they can fill the entire story in one season.
We need it. We need an Uncharted movie already. It's just modern day Indiana Jones.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, let me tell you about the Uncharted movie featuring Tom Holland. And
oh yes,
yeah,
that's right.
I know.
That's right.
That's why I said.
Oh, okay, got it.
Yeah.
It was forget it. Anyways,
we just need it out. Come on, guys.
Soon enough, my friend. Netflix on the Wii U and the Nintendo 3DS is dead. The service for both consoles ended on June 30th after years of functionality. People just weren't using it, so you turn it off if people don't use it. It goes back to the Titanfall thing.
Yeah.
Just like people. But the weird thing is that Nintendo now has no console with Netflix available on it.
See, that's strange.
Very strange. The Switch is
so
perfect for it.
weird.
Switch is perfect for it.
Yeah, and Netflix is on everything.
Yeah.
It's like the minute somebody releases something with a screen, Netflix is on that.
You can expect two things on any smart device: Netflix and Skyrim.
Netflix and Skyrim. Can I go on a bit of a tangent for a second? Because one of the funniest things to come out of the Trump presidency.
Oh no!
One of the most hilarious things.
I'm going to stop you right there.
was and I don't want to say the Trump presidency because it just felt like those whole 4 years of just
a fever dream.
Yeah, a fever dream. But this isn't a political show. Do you remember when someone accidentally sent out the alarm in Hawaii for like a missile detection system?
Oh my God! Yes.
so Pornhub. Which may or may not be a horrifically unethical company. Just let me put that out there. Pornhub put out stats for like people what they were watching and how quickly it went down, and then, like when it went back up for the scare.
Yeah,
and so it showed like what people were watching and what they were watching on, and there was like a tiny percentage of people that were watching on a Wii, and I don't know why, but there's so many hilarious things associated, and it's also a Nintendo console, so it's like you turn it on and there's like a bunch of me's on there and you go straight to porn. Yeah, exactly. I don't know, it's just there's something hilarious about Pornhub on a Nintendo console. So I mean, and you could do that on the Wii. You can't get Netflix on the Switch. What the hell is going on?
Travesty.
Right. What's the deal with Netflix on the Switch? Okay, Richard, go ahead.
Goddamn travesty. Bluepoint Games has slyly denied that Sony has acquired them. Bluepoint, of course, was believed to be acquired by Sony a couple weeks ago. Yeah. Bluepoint Software recently updated their Twitter bio to state Bluepoint Games is a fully independent, self-funded studio. And that was just this last week. So it looks like they're
now.
Yeah, for now. Yeah,
it was never confirmed, but their logo was up there on the leak, and it was an official PlayStation Twitter handle.
Yeah, just
so
a
it's
gaffe.
it's either a huge gaffe, a gigantic typo, or they're really not wanting to.
That's beyond a typo because that's graphic design.
You have to work at that.
You really have to try to mess up. Yeah. Sorry, Richard. I promise I won't keep stepping on your toes.
That's fine. This is all. If you want to discuss, we can discuss as well. This is just quick.
Look at that.
Rapid fire.
Housemarque was almost bought by somebody else. Of course, why wouldn't they be? Co-founder Ilari Kutanen, is that right?
Yeah,
maybe?
we debated how to pronounce the name.
Stated, I'm very sorry if I got that wrong. Stated that the usual suspects, quote unquote, worldwide, were interested in buying Housemarque. He named no names, but just said the usual suspects around China, Sweden, I think, and a couple other places. What ended up having Housemarque settle on Sony was that Sony, quote unquote, wanted to buy Housemarque because they are doing things that no one else is doing. Sony is also giving them freedom to do, quote unquote, what they want. I find that quote strange though, because Housemarque always has done what no one else was doing.
Yeah.
So
that's true.
Why would that be the only reason?
What really happened is a Sony exec walked into Housemarque and said, "It's a nice building you have here. It'd be a shame if something were to happen to it."
Money. Be a shame if somebody were to buy it. And that's all for the tidbits.
It's all for the tidbits. I don't know why, but that when you just did the pantomime of putting money on the table, you know that there's that old police academy where Leslie Nielsen, he's like questioning
It's
somebody.
not Police Academy. It's Naked Gun.
Is it Naked Gun? He gives him like $1. He's like,
Yeah.
he's like, maybe if you gave me $5, I'd remember. And so the guy takes the money and asks Leslie Nielsen a question. Leslie Nielsen's like, I don't know, I don't remember. The guy hands him the money back.
Yeah.
He takes it.
They're just loading each other.
And then they just keep giving them like the same
favorite
$5 bill
Yeah.
back and forth. Anyway, follow us on Twitter and Facebook at The Gaming Discourse. Go to our YouTube channel, YouTube/Gaming Discourse. We post new videos. We will not have a podcast next week. So our next podcast will be on July
Something or other.
Deal with it.
2020, somewhere around there. So you have to go on a week without us. But we'll see you then.
Bye.
Bye-bye.